They mocked her for being old and black, laughing as they called her a social burden unworthy of even stepping into their dojo. "Hey lady, you here to collect dust or what?" one sneered, his friends erupting in careless chuckles that echoed off the walls. To them, she was just another forgotten face in Atlanta's bustling Saturday morning class. Parents watching kids train, black belts flexing their youth. But Aisha Thompson, 58, sat there in her faded flannel and jeans, her posture too steady, her gray eyes too calm. With one unblinking glance, history itself had entered the room, ready to silence the mockery. Can you imagine a frail-looking grandmother hiding an eagle tattoo beneath her sleeve? A symbol of terrifying battles in distant deserts, where survival meant precision and prejudice was the real enemy? What happens next doesn't just shock everyone, it shatters illusions and rebuilds respect forever. Watch to uncover the secret behind her unbreakable silence. It's a story of resilience that will leave you changed. The dojo in Atlanta, Georgia, hummed with the energy of a typical Saturday morning. This southern city, steeped in civil rights history, carried echoes of past struggles. Segregation's shadows lingering in places like this, where old wounds could resurface unexpectedly. Folding chairs lined the walls, filled with parents sipping coffee, eyes on their children practicing kicks and grapples on the mats. The air smelled of sweat and polished wood, punctuated by the sharp thuds of bodies hitting foam and the occasional cheer from proud onlookers. At the center, a group of young black belts, mostly white, in their crisp uniforms, gathered between drills, their laughter loud and carefree, laced with the arrogance of youth untouched by real hardship. Among them stood Jake Briggs, 23, black belt tied tight, his stance cocky as he wiped sweat from his brow. His friends clapped him on the back, sharing jokes that carried a sharp edge. But at the edge of the room, unnoticed at first, sat Aisha Eagle Thompson. 58 years old, black, with short silver hair cropped close, she wore a simple flannel shirt tucked into faded jeans and scuffed boots that spoke of miles walked in harsher terrains. She looked every bit the grandmother waiting for a grandchild, quiet, unassuming, her frame lean but not frail. Yet her posture was straight, balanced, like a sniper steadying for a shot, weight distributed evenly, ready without effort. Aisha watched the children train, her pale gray eyes scanning the mat with quiet precision. One young black boy, no older than 10, fumbled a basic block, his form off balance. Without a word, she leaned forward slightly, catching his eye for a split second. She mimed a subtle adjustment, shift the foot, lower the center, unnoticed by the adults. The boy nodded, tried again, and nailed it, a small smile breaking through. It was a quiet act of kindness, a hero's subtle save, born from years of spotting flaws that could mean life or death. But the peace didn't last. Jake's gaze landed on her, his smirk widening. "Hey, old black lady," he called out, voice dripping with mock curiosity. "You here to learn or just watch for fun? Black women like you are only good at collecting welfare." His friends burst into laughter, one adding, "Careful, guys, she might teach us how to survive in the ghetto." The words hung heavy, sharp as knives, evoking ugly stereotypes that cut deep in a city like Atlanta, where echoes of Jim Crow laws still whispered in the wind. The older parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A silver-haired woman whispered to her husband, "This reminds me of Jim Crow times, when folks like her couldn't even sit in the front." Her voice carried a mix of shame and anger, but no one intervened, the room's energy tilting toward unease. Internally, Aisha remained silent, her expression unchanged, but a short flashback flickered in her mind. Delta Force training grounds, white teammates belittling her despite her saving a mission with a perfect sniper shot. "Black girl thinks she can play soldier," they'd sneered. The memory stung, but she pushed it down, her hand subtly touching the cuff of her sleeve to hide the faded scar from a sniper wound, a reminder of battles won and prejudices endured. But Aisha's eyes flashed for a brief moment. What's hidden behind that silence? She brushed her shirt, feeling the eagle tattoo underneath, reminding her of old wounds from distant battles, a symbol of soaring above it all. When Jake stepped closer, challenging her directly with a grin, no one expected what would come next. "What would you do if belittled like that? Watch on to see how she reacts." Jake stepped closer, his smirk twisting into something sharper, fueled by the uneasy silence that had fallen after his initial taunts. The dojo's energy shifted, the children's drills continuing in the background like a distant hum, but all eyes, subtly or not, drifted toward the confrontation at the edge of the mat. "What's the matter, old lady?" Jake pressed, his voice carrying across the room with deliberate volume. "Are you scared? Black women like you are only good at screaming anyway." His friends chuckled again, though quieter now, the laughter tinged with nervousness, as if they sensed the air thickening. Marcus, a tall black belt with a fresh uniform, nodded along. "Yeah, don't want to break a nail or something." The words landed like barbs, echoing the deep-seated prejudices that Atlanta's history knew all too well. Reminders of a time when black women were barred from opportunities, their strength dismissed as mere endurance for hardship. Aisha remained silent, her balanced posture unchanging, but her gray eyes flashed for a split second, a flicker of something ancient and unyielding. In that moment, a flashback pulled her back. The dusty streets of Kandahar in the early 2000s, where she, as the first black woman to infiltrate Delta Force G Squadron, crouched in the shadows of a bombed-out building. Using urban sniper skills, scanning for flaws in enemy positions, firing through mouse holes for concealed precision, she'd saved her team from an ambush, her shot dropping a threat before it could strike. But back at base, the discrimination hit harder than any bullet. White teammates muttering, "Black girls aren't worthy to hold a gun. Stick to support roles." It was a reference to the long history of black women's military contributions, like the WOA-2 Tuskegee Airmen who faced similar barriers, or the unsung nurses and spies who broke ceilings only to be pushed back down. Aisha had proven them wrong time and again, her Eagle call sign earned through unerring accuracy, but the wounds of exclusion lingered, carving deeper than her physical scar. The memory faded as quickly as it came, grounding her in the present. Jake, undeterred by her stillness, spread his arms wide in mock invitation. "Come on, show us a move. I'll go easy on you. Promise not to hurt your feelings." The call hung in the air, a direct challenge that turned the dojo's casual atmosphere into something electric. Parents whispered outrage among themselves, heightening the emotion. "Unfair. She's just sitting there minding her own business." One father muttered, his voice low but audible. A mother nearby nodded, her face tight with discomfort, the scene evoking the everyday microaggressions that older audiences might recall from their own lives or the civil rights era. From the benches, a small ally emerged. Daniel, the 14-year-old black boy whose form Aisha had subtly corrected earlier, leaned toward his mother, whispering with wide-eyed awe, "Mom, she's different. Like an eagle hunting prey, watching everything without moving." His words carried a spark of recognition, a young voice seeing strength where others saw weakness, adding a layer of hope to the tension. "Would you refuse or face it? Watch what Aisha chooses." Aisha's hand slipped to her pocket, fingers brushing the worn dog tag inside. It clinked lightly, a faint metallic sound that seemed louder in the charged quiet, tease of a deeper secret. Who does it belong to, and why does she cling to it like a lifeline? A first secret is about to emerge. Jake, growing impatient, forced the issue. "Fine, join the drill then. Let's see what you've got." But something unexpected happens. Don't miss this tense moment. The tension in the dojo thickened like a storm cloud as Jake's challenge echoed, his friends hovering nearby with expectant grins. "Join the drill," he repeated, gesturing to the mat with exaggerated courtesy. "Or are you too fragile?" The words were meant to prod, but they landed heavier, stirring the room's unease into outright discomfort. Aisha met his gaze steadily, her balanced stance unwavering, but she shook her head once, her voice low and firm. "I've fought enough." It was a simple refusal, yet it carried the weight of decades. A quiet declaration that silenced the immediate laughter from his group. The parents' whispers grew louder, outrage building in hushed tones. "That's crossing a line." One older man muttered, his face flushed. "Reminds me of how folks treated black women back in the day, unfair and outright cruel." Jake, undeterred and perhaps emboldened by the spotlight, leaned in closer. "Women like you are just burdens anyway, dragging everyone down." The insult ignited a fresh wave of murmurs, heightening the emotional stakes. It evoked the harsh realities of WOA-2 segregation, where black women in the military faced not just enemy fire, but harsher punishments and exclusion from roles they earned. They were often relegated to menial tasks, their contributions erased, their punishments doubled for the crime of daring to serve while black and female. Aisha's pain stirred at the core, a deep-seated wound that Jake's words unwittingly prodded. Internally, the refusal wasn't just words. It was a battle. The flashback hit her like a sandstorm. Kandahar's urban chaos in 2003, rubble-strewn streets under a merciless sun. As the first black woman in Delta Force G Squadron, Aisha had positioned herself in a mousehole, a concealed wall breach for sniper vantage, her rifle steady, scanning for threats. She'd taken out 2 insurgents, saving her team, but in the crossfire, her black comrade, Sergeant Malik, fell beside her, his dog tag slipping from his neck as she dragged him to cover. Back at base, the accusation came swift. Fault due to being a black woman distracted the unit. It was a lie born of prejudice, but it shattered her, leading to PTSD that haunted her post-retirement. Nightmares of dust and loss, the constant vigilance that made her hide away, avoiding any conflict that might reopen those scars. She had chosen anonymity, blending into civilian life to heal, but moments like this threatened to pull her back. The struggle intensified now. Aisha nearly rose to leave, her hand shaking slightly as she gripped the chair. Multi-layered internal fear of PTSD relapse flooding her, the racing heart, the phantom echoes of gunfire. Would facing this reopen everything she'd buried? Her fingers brushed the eagle tattoo under her shirt, a symbol of soaring above prejudice. Her mother's words from childhood, whispered during stories of woe-to nurses who defied odds. Rise higher, child, like the eagle sees beyond the storm. Is that scar from a kitchen knife or from a bigger battle? As she nearly walked away, one word from the sidelines changed everything. Do you think she'll return? Watch on to find out. As Aisha nearly walked away, her boots scraping softly against the dojo floor, one word pierced the tension like a distant rifle shot. Wait. It came from Harold, an elderly white former officer seated among the parents, his cane resting against his knee. His voice was low, a whisper meant only for those nearby, but it carried the authority of someone who'd seen wars and their aftermath. Leaning toward his wife, he murmured, "I see her stance, like the snipers I knew in Vietnam. Steady, unyielding, eyes that miss nothing. Like Rosa Parks on that bus, she'll change everything without a word." His words were a historical nod, educating subtly on quiet resistance. Parks' refusal to give up her seat in 1955 sparked a movement, much like the black women in Bobui II who faced segregation yet served with unbreakable resolve. Harold's eyes, sharpened by years of debriefs, recognized in Aisha the invisible scars of service, the kind earned in places where prejudice was as deadly as the enemy. The whisper rippled outward, reaching young Daniel on the bench. The boy, still buzzing from Aisha's earlier subtle correction to his form, leaned forward, his voice a hushed echo of support. She has an eagle tattoo, symbol of freedom, like she could soar over all this. His mother shushed him gently, but her own gaze lingered on Aisha, a spark of solidarity forming. Daniel's words, innocent yet perceptive, positioned him as an ally, a bridge between generations, seeing in Aisha not age or color, but the predator's grace he'd read about in books on wildlife survival. Aisha paused at the door, the refusal still heavy in her chest, but the voices tugged at her. A memory surfaced, soft and anchoring. Her mother, a Hutu black nurse in the segregated wards, bandaging soldiers while facing her own battles against exclusion. "Soar above prejudice, daughter," she'd say, tracing an imaginary eagle on young Aisha's back. "Like the bird sees the whole sky, you rise higher than their chains." It was a mantra born from harsh realities. Black women punished doubly for daring to heal or fight, their contributions buried in history's footnotes. The flashback grounded Aisha, reminding her that walking away wasn't always the victory. Transitioning from retreat to resolve, Aisha turned back, deciding to observe rather than engage fully. She stepped to the mat's edge, her eyes scanning the drills like a sniper assessing a field. Jake, mid-grapple with Marcus, boasted loudly, his form flashy but flawed. Aisha spoke softly, her voice cutting through. "Your grip is weak, hips open." It was like a sniper scan, spotting flaws before the shot, a technique honed in urban combat where hesitation meant death. Jake frowned, dismissing it with a laugh, but when he tried the hold again, Marcus twisted free easily, flipping him onto his back with a thud. The room buzzed, whispers turning to gasps, mini-climax rippling through the crowd. Parents exchanged looks. The black belts faltered in their drills. How will the ally help her? Watch on. Daniel's eyes widened as he caught a glimpse of the tattoo peeking from Aisha's sleeve. What does it mean? He asked aloud, his question looping back to the symbol's mystery. Aisha's first correction, and the gym is shocked. Secret about to reveal. Don't stop. The dojo's buzz from Aisha's first correction hung in the air like static electricity, the room's energy crackling with a mix of surprise and skepticism. Jake scrambled to his feet, red-faced and brushing off his guy, his earlier arrogance flickering but not extinguished. Lucky guess, he muttered, but his eyes darted back to Aisha, unsettled by the precision of her words. The black belts exchanged glances, their drills pausing as whispers spread. How did she know that? Parents leaned forward, the older ones nodding knowingly, while the children watched wide-eyed. Master Alvarez, the head instructor, adjusted his belt, but said nothing, his expression a mask of curiosity. He'd seen enough in his 30 years to recognize when someone carried more than met the eye. Aisha, still at the mat's edge, felt the pull of the moment. The refusal lingered in her veins, but the dojo's collective gaze, part challenge, part plea, tugged her forward. With a slow inhale, she crossed the threshold, stepping onto the mat for the first time. Her boots clicked faintly against the foam, and as she shrugged off her flannel shirt to move freely, the eagle tattoo on her upper back was revealed in full. A striking black ink design of wings spread wide, talons poised, eyes fierce. The visual shock rippled through the room. Gasps escaped from the benches, Daniel's eyes lighting up as he pointed. It was the loop of the symbol, soaring above all prejudice, now exposed, a silent testament to battles won against odds stacked higher than any dojo wall. Jake's smirk returned, thinner now as he squared up. All right, Grandma, let's spar. Show us what that ink means. The challenge was on, the air thick with anticipation. Aisha nodded once, her socks gripping the mat, stance balanced, knees soft, weight centered, arms loose but ready. No uniform, no flair, just the quiet efficiency of someone who'd crossed far deadlier thresholds. The first challenge came fast. Jake lunged flashily, a sweeping arm aimed at her shoulder, his movement all show and youthful power, designed to impress the crowd. But Aisha shifted minimally, a precise pivot that redirected his force against him, like an urban sniper skill honed in Kandahar's labyrinthine streets. Minimal movement to avoid detection, using the environment for cover, such as mouse holes punched through walls for concealed shots that turned the tide without fanfare. Her open palm guided his momentum, and Jake stumbled forward, tumbling onto the mat with a thud that echoed louder than his taunts. Mini-climax hit the room. Cheers mixed with stunned silence, the black belts freezing mid-drill. Jake popped up, breathing harder, his ego bruised. What the? But before he could rally, group conflict erupted. Marcus, his closest friend, stepped in aggressively. Hold up, this ain't right. Black women don't belong here, messing with our drills, get off the mat. His opposition was raw, echoing the prejudices Aisha had faced before, but Harold rose from his chair, cane in hand, defending sharply. Son, you've got no idea who you're talking to. That's experience talking, not entitlement. Sit down and learn. The exchange heightened the stakes. Parents murmuring support for Aisha, the dojo dividing into factions as the older generation's wisdom clashed with youthful bias. Eagle tattoo revealed. What symbol is this, really? Jake falls, but the real challenge is just beginning. Do you think she'll win? Watch on. The real challenge was just beginning, the dojo's air now charged with a mix of awe and defiance after Jake's initial fall. Aisha stood at the mat center, her eagle tattoo still visible, a silent emblem that seemed to pulse under the fluorescent lights. Jake, wiping his face with his sleeve, reset his stance with forced confidence. That was nothing. Try again. Prove it's not some fluke, he barked, his voice echoing a challenge that drew the black belts closer, their drills forgotten. Master Alvarez clapped once, signaling a pause, but his eyes betrayed intrigue, as if sensing the shift from sport to something deeper. Aisha nodded subtly, her posture unchanged, balanced, economical, like a sniper conserving energy in hostile territory. She corrected from afar as Jake grappled Marcus once more. Weak grip leaves you exposed. Jake ignored her, tightening his hold with bravado, but the flaw was fatal. Marcus twisted free effortlessly, countering with a sweep that sent Jake sprawling again. The thud reverberated, mini-climax striking like a suppressed shot. The room reacted in waves. Allies emerged stronger. Daniel jumped up cheering, like an eagle strike, quick and deadly. His mother, emboldened, nodded fiercely. She's teaching real skill, not show. But enemies escalated harshly. Marcus sneered. This is bull. She's unworthy. Black women cheating with tricks probably learned in some back alley. The outrage peaked. Parents murmuring in support of Aisha. That's crossing lines, echoes the old biases that kept folks like her out. It was like a counter-sniper scan in action, spotting weak positions before engaging, metaphorical in the dojo as identifying grip flaws to avoid an ambush of reversal. Aisha touched her tattoos subtly, whispering inwardly, soar high above their words, looping back to her mother's encouragement during childhood tales of prejudice. But why does her hand shake slightly, hidden pain emerging? What do you think Jake will learn from this fail? Watch on. Jake reset, frustration boiling over as he lunged directly at Aisha with a flashy kick, his movement all raw power and no finesse. You won't get lucky twice, he shouted. Aisha shifted minimally, redirecting his momentum with a fluid turn, urban sniper technique at its core, using the enemy's force against them, like redirecting fire with smoke cover to obscure and counter. Jake stumbled forward, his own speed betraying him, crashing to the mat in a heap. Another mini-climax? The fall harder, the room's gasps louder. Allies amplified, Daniel's eyes shone. She's unstoppable, like the eagle soaring over storms. Harold, gripping his cane, defended loudly. That's Vietnam-level precision, boy. Respect it, or you'll keep falling. Enemies pushed back viciously. Jake, red-faced, yelled from the ground. This is BS. An old black lady doesn't belong here. Probably some ghetto trick to make us look bad. Marcus joined. Yeah, kick her out before she ruins the place. The bias escalated harshly, stirring deep outrage. The dojo dividing, parents rising in defense. Enough. That's the same hate that denied black talent for generations. Internally, Aisha felt the strain. A flicker of PTSD surfaced, her heart racing as the noise blurred into echoes of base accusations. The loop deepened with an integrated flashback. Kandahar's shadows, where she'd redirected an ambush using environmental cover. Her tattoo fresh then, a mental anchor to soar high above the slurs. But the memory tugged painfully now. Jake spots something in her pocket. Glint of metal. Family heirloom? Will Jake's bias break or escalate? Watch on. Undeterred, Jake charged again, this time with aggressive grapple, his hands aiming for a quick pin. Got you now, he growled. Aisha met it with an open palm intercept, pinning him down with control. No excess force, just pure technique that left him immobilized on the mat. The third mini-climax landed like a pinpoint shot, the room falling into stunned hush before erupting. It was the pinnacle of counter-sniper, pinning the threat with minimal contact, like smoke obscuring position to neutralize without escalation, metaphorical here as dojo control without harm. Allies rallied. Daniel and his mom applauded. Eagle power, teaching us all. Harold boomed. That's true mastery, over prejudice too. But enemies hit peak harshness. Marcus shoved forward. She's unworthy, cheating with voodoo or whatever old black ladies do. Jake pinned and humiliated and spat. Get off me, you don't belong. The outrage crested, the dojo on edge, parents siding openly with Aisha. Stop the hate, it's 2025, not the Jim Crow era. Internally, Aisha nearly collapsed. The PTSD surged full force, flashbacks overwhelming. Comrade Sergeant Malik's death in the crossfire, the accusation black woman fault ringing in her ears. Her vision blurred, hand shaking as she released the pin, but she touched the tattoo, repeating soar high to ground herself, the loop a lifeline amid the storm. But the dog tag, why does it feel familiar to Jake? What lesson hits Jake next? Watch on. The room's tension peaked as Jake demanded a rematch, Aisha steady but drained. Allies like Daniel chanted softly, believe in the eagle, while enemies pushed their bias to the brink. But in the chaos, Jake's earlier glimpse of the dog tag nagged at him. He'd thought it a family heirloom, some worthless trinket. Yet a flashback teased otherwise. Aisha and Kandahar slipping the tag from Malik's neck as she carried his body, vowing to honor it, a personal connection he couldn't yet fathom. First twist. Who owns the dog tag, really? Bigger secret coming. Don't stop now. The dojo's atmosphere crackled with unresolved tension, the first twist of the dog tag hanging like an unspoken question amid the divided crowd. Jake, still on one knee from his latest pin, pushed himself up, his chest heaving, face a mask of fury and confusion. The glint of the metal in Aisha's pocket nagged at him, but he shoved it aside, channeling his humiliation into defiance. "Enough games," he snarled, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "One full round, no holding back. Let's end this." His friends nodded eagerly, Marcus clapping him on the shoulder with a venomous glare at Aisha. "Yeah, show her she doesn't belong." The pressure mounted, the room's energy coiling like a spring, allies like Daniel holding their breath while Harold's knuckles whitened on his cane. Aisha met Jake's stare, her gray eyes steady despite the internal storm. She inclined her head slightly. "One full round," she agreed, her tone calm but laced with finality. "And when it's done, you'll apologize." The acceptance sent a ripple through the dojo, high tension gripping everyone, the air thick with anticipation and unease. Parents shifted nervously, one whispering, "This could get ugly," evoking the peak outrage as biases clashed with emerging respect. Master Alvarez stepped forward, hesitating as if to intervene, but the inevitability held him back. As they squared off, the high tension triggered a major flashback, pulling Aisha into the heart of her harshest barrier. Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2003. The urban combat zone, a maze of crumbling walls under a blistering sun. As one of the first black women to break into Delta Force in the 1990s, a time when segregation's legacy still tainted military ranks, with black women facing harsher scrutiny and exclusion from elite roles, Aisha had positioned herself in a mousehole, a makeshift sniper perch punched through adobe for concealed vantage. Her rifle steady, she scanned positions, firing precise shots that saved her team from an encirclement. "Target down, flank clear," she'd radioed, her urban sniper skills turning the tide. Minimal exposure, using environment for cover, redirecting threats with calculated precision. But in the chaos, her comrade Sergeant Malik took a hit, his body crumpling beside her. She dragged him to safety, slipping his dog tag into her pocket as medevac rotors whined overhead. Back at base, the accusation came like a gut punch. Fault due to being a black woman distracted the unit with her presence. It was a lie rooted in prejudice, historical echoes of black women in the 1990s, military enduring double standards, their breakthroughs met with sabotage rather than celebration. The loss and blame shattered her, birthing the PTSD that now threatened to resurface. All was lost in this moment, the peak outrage surging as Jake's taunts blended with those old voices. Aisha hesitated, her hand shaking visibly for the first time, PTSD flooding her, heart pounding like incoming fire, vision tunneling as phantom dust choked her lungs. She nearly stepped back, the barrier of her past feeling insurmountable, the dojo fading into the desert's haze. Biggest secret about to reveal, but at what cost? She touched her tattoo, fingers tracing the eagle's wings. Soar above the pain, the loop a desperate anchor, her mother's voice cutting through the fog. Life or death moment begins. Don't miss this climax. The life or death moment began with a hush falling over the dojo, the air heavy as if the walls themselves held their breath. Aisha, her hand still trembling from the PTSD surge, faced Jake across the mat. The hesitation lingered in her eyes for a split second, the all-is-lost echo of Kandahar's accusations ringing faintly, but she centered herself, touching the eagle tattoo once more, its ink a silent vow to soar. Jake, fueled by repeated humiliations, circled with fierce intensity, his black belt uniform sweat-soaked, his stance aggressive. "No more tricks, let's finish this," he roared, lunging with a barrage of strikes, his attacks a whirlwind of youthful fury aimed to overwhelm. Aisha met the sparring with sniper precision, no wasted energy, every movement economical, honed from missions where excess meant exposure and death. Jake's first fierce punch sliced the air, but she redirected it with a subtle pivot, using his force against him. Like turning an enemy's advance into their downfall. He overextended, stumbling but catching himself. Mini-climax 6 rippled through the crowd, gasps from the parents, Daniel whispering excitedly, "She's redirecting like an eagle dodging wind." But Jake pressed on, undaunted. He charged again, this time with a grappling hook, arms wrapping for a takedown. Aisha countered with an open palm intercept, guiding his momentum into a controlled fall. No brutality, just redirection that left him sprawled. The 7th mini-climax hit harder, progressing the intensity. The black belts murmured in awe, Marcus crossing his arms defiantly, This can't be real, she's got to be cheating. Allies rallied, Harold nodding approvingly. That's discipline, not luck. The room's outrage from earlier biases shifted, whispers of respect clashing with lingering prejudice. Jake rose, chest heaving, desperation etching his face. "You're done," he bellowed, launching a final all-out assault, a knee strike followed by a wrist grab, his grip vice-like. Aisha twisted fluidly, applying a wrist twist pin that locked his arm and dropped him face down, immobilized in seconds. The eighth mini-climax peaked, the dojo erupting in a mix of cheers and stunned silence. Children like Daniel clapped wildly, "Eagle wins," while parents stood, the transformation palpable. But in the victory's wake came the double unexpected twist. Harold, unable to contain it longer, rose from his chair, his voice booming over the noise. "That's no ordinary woman. That's Aisha Thompson, the first black female sniper in Delta Force G Squadron, callsign Ghost Eagle. She saved hundreds in Kandahar, overcoming segregation's barriers in the 1990s, when black women were shut out of elite ops. I saw reports like hers in Vietnam, quiet heroes changing history." The revelation shocked the room, jaws dropping as the historical weight landed. Black women in Delta facing double discrimination, yet excelling in clandestine missions, their stories buried until moments like this unearthed them. Jake, pinned and breathless, froze as the words sank in. His eyes locked on the dog tag peeking from Aisha's pocket, the one he'd glimpsed earlier, dismissing as an heirloom. But now, in a major twist, recognition dawned. The faded engraving matched his father's, lost in a Kandahar mission years ago. "That's Dad's," he whispered, collapsing fully, not from the pin but the realization. Aisha had saved his father in that very ambush, carrying the tag as a reminder of the comrade she'd lost instead. The sweet shock completed the misdirection. From enemy to ally in an instant, Jake's arrogance shattering into tears. You were there?" The emotional climax crested. Aisha released him gently, her own eyes welling with light tears, the weight of years, losses, and prejudices lifting. In the dojo's light, her eagle tattoos seemed to soar, wings catching the glow as if rising above it all, the loop symbol culminating in this moment of redemption. Most satisfying moment. Don't miss it. But the journey isn't over. Watch the final change. The dojo erupted as Jake collapsed into realization, the weight of the twists crashing down like a lifted veil. Applause broke the stunned silence, sporadic at first, then swelling from the parents and children alike. Daniel pumped his fist, cheering. "She did it. The eagle soared." His mother joined, her voice thick with emotion, while Harold nodded solemnly, his eyes misty with recognition of a fellow veteran's quiet triumph. Even Master Alvarez clapped slowly, the room's division healing in the wake of truth, the prejudices that had simmered now dissolving under the light of revelation. Jake, still on the mat, pushed himself up on shaking arms, tears streaming down his face. The arrogance that had defined him shattered, replaced by raw vulnerability. He looked at Aisha, the dog tag in her hand now a bridge rather than a mystery. You saved my father," he choked out, his voice breaking as he bowed his head in apology. "I'm sorry for everything. The mockery, the hate. I didn't know." The sweet recognition washed over the space, a cathartic release that turned enemy into ally. The dojo united in a moment of profound humanity. Aisha, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears, extended a hand to help him up. "Not to win," she said softly, her words carrying the wisdom of battles far beyond the mat, but to remind, overcome prejudice with discipline. Resilience isn't about strength alone, it's equality in action, rising above the barriers that divide us. It was a life skills lesson etched in the air, education rooted in her experiences, building inner fortitude to dismantle biases, just as she'd done in Delta Force, turning exclusion into excellence. The eagle tattoo on her back seemed to catch the light anew, wings unfurling as a spiritual reward, a symbol of victory, not over one man, but over the shadows of prejudice that had haunted her. But there's one more surprise. The applause faded into a respectful hush as Aisha gathered her flannel shirt, the eagle tattoo disappearing beneath the fabric once more, a quiet return to anonymity. She nodded to the room, her gray eyes softened by the moment's catharsis, and turned toward the exit. But before leaving, she paused at the dojo's entrance wall, reaching into her pocket for the dog tag. With deliberate care, she hung it on a small hook there, the faded metal gleaming faintly, a symbol of loss transformed into legacy, a reminder for all who passed beneath it. The door creaked open, cool air rushing in, but footsteps echoed behind her. Jake, still catching his breath, chased after, his voice tentative for the first time. "Wait, teach me. I want to learn from you." It was a small twist, an unexpected challenge. Aisha, who had hidden her past to heal, now faced the pull of sharing it. Accepting meant confronting the ghosts anew, but in his earnest eyes echoing his father's, she saw purpose. "Not today," she replied gently, "but I'll return." Discipline starts with humility. Her promise hung in the air, a bridge to tomorrow. One final secret reveals, ending will move you. The final secret revealed itself in the quiet aftermath. As Aisha stepped back from the mat, the dojo's energy shifting from confrontation to contemplation. In a twist that redefined her story, a brief flashback illuminated her ongoing life. Even in retirement, Aisha remained secretly active, a covert operative consulting on anti-terror ops, her sniper skills deployed in shadows against modern threats. But she chose anonymity, not for evasion, but for healing, allowing the eagle within to rest after decades of soaring through storms of prejudice. This revelation, whispered in her mind as she donned her shirt, underscored her resurrection. Not a return to the front lines, but a rebirth through quiet influence, overcoming the systemic biases that had once sought to ground her. Jake, transformed by the ordeal, stood taller yet humbler, his eyes no longer clouded by arrogance. He approached Aisha with reverence, the dojo watching as he vowed, "I'll change, starting today." The space itself resurrected. Students like Marcus hung their heads in reflection, while Daniel beamed, sketching the eagle tattoo on a notebook as a symbol of equality. In a humanistic gesture, the group decided to frame a photo of the tattoo above the entrance, beside the dog tag, a beacon for all, reminding of resilience beyond race or gender. Letters poured in, metaphorical echoes from her past, one from an old comrade thanking her for Kandahar's saves, another imagined from family, praising her for soaring where others faltered. "You've healed more than wounds," it read, the words a balm for her PTSD scars. The lingering impact deepened with a historical quote, whispered by Harold. "Soar above prejudice," he said, echoing figures like Harriet Tubman who defied chains to lead others to freedom. It was easy to share, a mantra for the dojo's new ethos. In the final image, Aisha stood at the edge once more, like the opening, but now with a faint smile, the gym respectful, her presence a testament to victory. Weeks passed, and the dojo transformed under the elixir of Aisha's influence, a quiet revolution in humility and understanding. Students like Jake arrived early, sweeping mats with newfound discipline, their boasts replaced by questions. How do we spot our own flaws? The space added military history classes, education woven into drills, lessons on Black women's unsung roles in Delta Force and Webelwood 2, turning the mat into a classroom for resilience against prejudice. Marcus, once an enemy, now led discussions on equality, his bias dismantled like a flawed grip. Aisha visited occasionally, her presence inspiring without fanfare. A nod here, a correction there, her eagle tattoo a subtle reminder. The dog tag and photo hung as talismans, drawing whispers of awe from newcomers. The major message echoed in every session. Overcome race and gender with inner strength, like an eagle soaring high. A sweet emotion that went viral, shared in comments and stories, fostering connections beyond the walls. The lingering open ending found Aisha walking in Atlanta's sunlight, her steps unhurried, the tattoo on her back soaring in the breeze, a figure of quiet power, her journey a beacon for others to rise. If you love stories of resilience and justice, like, subscribe, share where you're watching from. How have you overcome prejudice? Comment below to connect.